With the draft and free agency in the rearview mirror, we are starting to hit actual fantasy football draft season. Whether that's startup drafts or whether you are drafting Bestball teams on Underdog, Drafters, or wherever you are drafting. In this video, I have 4 offenses that you need to be targeting. They are ascending and they are undervalued, and I'm going to be talking you through 3 targets on each offense that you need to be drafting this summer. If you enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing, but let's get into it with the first offense that you need to be targeting this offseason. The New England Patriots are a team that I have spoken about a lot in my content this offseason, and that is not going to stop anytime soon. I think they were the biggest winners of the offseason so far, potentially them and the Bears, who I'm not talking about on this video because everyone knows to target the Bears offense. But they got rid of their previous head coach and brought in Mike Vrabel alongside Josh McDaniel as the offensive coordinator. Now, my initial instinct with this was to be a little bit uncertain, but actually McDaniel has done a really good job with New England offenses in the past and has done a great job of developing quarterbacks. Now, the quarterback is obviously central to all of this. Drake May was taken with the third overall pick, a couple of years ago, but showed a lot last season when he eventually came in to start, and will go into this season as the fully fledged starter and someone who I think for fantasy football is going to be an absolute goldmine with a fantastic rushing floor and a huge arm to make big plays happen as well. The problem last season is that the offensive line was absolutely dreadful and there was no wide receiving core to go with it. They have improved both this offseason, whether it's going and getting Morgan Moses to play right tackle, drafting Will Campbell in the top 5 to play left tackle, or the improvements they've made to the receiving core with Stephon Diggs coming in. I think that was a fantastic move. He showed a lot in Texas with the Texans until he then tore his ACL. Kyle Williams in the draft, and even Travion Henderson taken in the second round as their starting running back. The Patriots have made such a huge improvement to this offense. I love the talent of Drake May, and I think they're going to be clear values this offseason, as you can see with some of the ADP that I'm about to show you. So, looking at the ADP for the Patriots this offseason, Drake May is going at the QB 17. Now, I don't think there is any world in which he finishes this low. I think the rushing floor is fantastic. I think he has a great baseline for fantasy production. And when you look at his production last season towards the end, he was outperforming this week on week. He is going at pick 117. So, available as potentially your QB2 towards the 10th round. But if you are looking to punt quarterback and go for an upside option later on, Drake May is my perfect player to draft. Then Stephon Diggs is going as the wide receiver 45 all the way down at pick 89. Diggs, again, is one of my favorite players to draft in best ball this offseason. Because of where we are in the calendar, people will still treat redraft drafts as if they're dynasty and target young breakout players, but you need to supplement them with some veterans who you know are going to have guaranteed production, and Diggs is going to be the wide receiver 1 on this team. The other player that is an absolutely fantastic target, who I think in Dynasty is going to end up as a top 5 Dynasty running back, is Travion Henderson, who is currently going as the RB20 and is available very late on. Henderson was one of my favorite players in this draft, ultimately finishing my rankings as my RB2. And being available this late on, when he should come in straight away with at least 60% of the workload behind an improved offensive line, and as one of the best pass catchers on this team, is a fantastic value to me. Before we get into the next offense, I'd like to ask you to please like and subscribe to my channel. I had a little look the other day and less than 10% of my viewers are currently subscribed. You need to be boosting that numbers if you want to get some fantastic content this offseason, and I would love for you to subscribe to the channel and keep watching everything I'm putting out. The first half to the season last year under Dave Canales was an absolute train wreck for the Panthers, but after Andy Dalton's car crash and Bryce Young came back in after his benching, they looked like a really exciting team, taking the Super Bowl champion Eagles all the way to a final drive where ultimately Xavier Legette dropped what could have been a game-winning touchdown, but Bryce Young marched them all the way down the field, and they have only gone and improved their offense this offseason, mostly with the guy you see in this picture here, Tataroa McMillan. The Panthers wide receiver core was really lacking, with Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker, and Adam Thielen really headlining, which, as you can tell, those aren't really headliners. What they needed was an alpha in the room, relegating the rest of them to role players and letting them settle a little bit more into what their role should actually be. Tetero McMillan, taken at 9th overall, is exactly that. I loved the skill set of Tat McMillan. I love having a big body for Bryce Young to aim for, and I think this connection is going to be a sneaky success this offseason. At running back, they ultimately ended up with Chuba Hubbard going in as the RB1 with the injury to Jonathan Brooks, but they did target Rico Dowdle as a free agent, and he'll come in as the RB2 and a really nice value if you look at where he's going currently. The Panthers are on the way up. We loved the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense under Dave Canales, and we saw towards the end of the season the way that Bryce Young has developed. But they are all still going so low in fantasy football, and Bryce Young might be one of my full breakout candidates for the 2025 fantasy football season. Despite that, Bryce Young is incredibly undervalued this offseason. Bryce is going into the season as the QB 24 on Underdog, available at pick 148. That means that he is a perfect candidate to be targeting as your quarterback 2. You don't need to spend up to get him as your QB1, but if Bryce continues the developmental pathway that we saw last season or towards the end of last season, he should be someone that needs to be rostered, and you can get him so cheap. Chuba Hubbard is obviously one of the more exciting players on this team. He's going as the RB19 around pick 53, so you can get him quite easily as an RB2. People are still a little disappointed by just the name, but Chuba Hubbard last season was an absolute league winner as the bell cow back in this offense, and Rico Dowdle will take some of the work, but Hubbard will still be primed for success behind an exciting run blocking line. Tataro McMillan is obviously the focal point of this offense now, coming into the season as the wide receiver 25 as a rookie, which is a much more palatable price than last season's rookie wide receiver 1, Marvin Harrison Jr., going as the wide receiver 9 in redraft. Tat McMillan may take a little bit of time to develop, but there is no reason why he can't outproduce this wide receiver 25 price, especially because there is very little competition for targets on this team, and with an ascending offense, there should be more possibility for him to get those precious red zone targets as well. It feels weird to talk about the Cowboys as an ascending offense, but to me, this is more a value question. Aside from CeeDee Lamb, the Cowboys are being incredibly undervalued this season. And yes, last year was incredibly disappointing with them. Obviously, Dak Prescott ending up getting injured and them ultimately slipping to the 12th overall pick in the draft, when beforehand, they were the joint favorites to win the NFC East with the ultimate Super Bowl winning champions, Philadelphia Eagles. But when you look at the ADP of Cowboys players this offseason, there is a real value opportunity here. The Cowboys offense is now obviously headlined by their head coach Brian Schottenheimer, who was the offensive coordinator last season. It's not as exciting as when it was Kellen Moore a few seasons ago, but there's no reason to think that they can't be able to continue some of the exciting offensive play that they showed in the season the past few years under Mike McCarthy. The issue for the Cowboys has always been the playoffs, but for the regular season, they have been fancy gold. Dak Prescott a couple of years ago was an MVP candidate until the last couple of weeks of the season, finishing as the QB3 overall. That is a player that you just cannot undervalue, and he is only 31 going into this season. He is one of my favorite quarterbacks to target in both dynasty leagues and in redraft because he's going so under the radar, but he is fantasy gold, especially with the upgrades that they have made to the wide receiving core, one upgrade in particular, and the fact that I actually think this offensive line is going to hold up pretty well with the addition of Tyler Booker in the first round. So, speaking of those additions, we'll start off with Dak Prescott, who is currently going as the QB 15 at pick 107. Again, if you are punting the quarterback position, if you're avoiding some of those elite options higher up in the draft, but you want someone who still has the upside to finish as a top 5 quarterback, Dak Prescott is absolutely someone that you should be looking towards. But the additions are the big points here. George Pickens, I'm not 100% sure that his underdog ADP has actually changed yet with the trade news. He was going as the wide receiver 39, and he's still listed there. Now, George Pickens obviously went from being thrown to by, probably Aaron Rodgers, but currently Mason Rudolph or Will Howard, to being thrown to by Dak Prescott in one of the most pass-happy offenses in the league. Now, he is obviously competing with CeeDee Lamb for targets, but CeeDee has always done his best work out of the slot or as a movable chess piece as more of the Z than as a traditional X. George Pickens is 100% an X option who works best on the boundary and deep down the field. They complement each other so well, and George Pickens might be a better in best ball pick because he might be a little bit more up and down, but I am so excited for his role in this offense. Another player I'm excited for as well is Javonte Williams, currently going as the RB45. Now, Javonte is going under the radar because obviously he had a really disappointing last season and last few seasons given the hype that he had coming into the league. Javonte hasn't been healthy his entire time in the NFL, but if he can recover some of that health and get back to the player that he was coming out of college, this is going to be a huge value. And even if he's only 60%, 70%, going this late down draft boards and functioning as the RB1 in this offense, Williams is going to be a huge value going into 2025. My final ascending offense, and one that I seem to talk about in every single video that I post this offseason, is the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars made huge improvements, not just at wide receiver with Travis Hunter, not just at running back with Bashal Tootin and LaQuinn Allen, but most importantly at head coach with Liam Cohen. They are going to have a huge improvement going into this year than what we've seen the last few years, whether it be under Urban Meyer or under Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson was strange, actually, because I was really excited to see this offense under him after having seen Urban Meyer towards the beginning of Trevor Lawrence's career, but the offense just looked stagnant. Liam Cohen helped put together one of the most explosive and exciting offenses in the league in Tampa Bay, and you can already start to see the way in which some of those pieces are starting to fit together to play the same roles that we saw last season, whether it's Brian Thomas Jr. playing out of the slot in the Chris Godwin role, whether it's Bashal Tootin as the Bucky Irving in the offense, the explosive, smaller running back. But Trevor Lawrence is going to be a huge benefactor of this, and the Jags are an offense that I love to be targeting this next season. So Trevor Lawrence himself is going as the QB 19, available about the 10th round. This is an interesting target for me. So Trevor Lawrence probably doesn't have the same upside because of the lack of rushing, although we have seen him use his legs, but it's more about scrambling than it is designed rushing plays for Trevor Lawrence. Although I do remember winning an accumulator by betting on him to score a rushing touchdown a few seasons ago. So maybe there's something there. But Trevor Lawrence provides a really stable floor, and we saw Baker Mayfield really perform last season for fantasy, one of the players that helped me finish third overall in Scott Fishbowl, despite not having a fantastic rushing baseline. Brian Thomas Jr. is obviously going at the back of the first round as the wide receiver 8. Brian Thomas Jr. is going to get fed in this offense. He is the clear wide receiver 1. Travis Hunter is a perfect complementary piece, but is obviously not going to play 100% of snaps. Brian Thomas Jr. in an ascending offense is going to be fantastic. People forget that last season when he finished as the wide receiver 9 overall, wide receiver 4 overall, he did so with Mac Jones as his quarterback the second half of the season. With Trevor back and healthy, it is going to be a huge upgrade for BTJ. Bashal Tootin is obviously going a little bit later down the boards towards the RB40 range. Now, this backfield is going to be an interesting one to try and guess, with currently Tootin, LaQuinn Allen, Tank Bigsby, and Travis Etienne available. One of those running backs will not make the roster. My guess currently is Travis Etienne, who I think gets cut or traded, probably just because he's costing them too much. There's obviously a chance that it's LaQuinn Allen as well, because he was drafted in the 7th round, but I definitely think Tank Bigsby and Tootin are going to make the roster and provide that kind of thunder and lightning combination we often like to refer to with backfields. Tootin would be the target for me as the more explosive player, but I wouldn't blame anyone who wants to target that goal line work with Tank Bigsby. But either way, this is an offense that you want to be getting this offseason, and that Trevor Lawrence to BTJ stack is one that you can target well down the board with Trevor Lawrence as your QB1.